Yeah, is that good? Brilliant, thank you. Okay, well, good morning. I'm Dr. John Swaddle. I'm head of the Centre for UK Biodiversity here and Programme Lead for Citizen Science. I just wanted to reiterate Lucy's thanks, really, and welcome you to the museum. Thank you for coming along today. As you can see from your programme, we've got quite a packed programme, a lot of interesting speakers, and quite a few different talk styles as well. So I think in the interest of keeping to time, which we're going to really try to do, I'm going to go straight ahead and introduce our opening keynote speaker, who's Professor Chris Lintott from the University of Oxford, and he's the PI for the Zooniverse web platform. So Chris is going to be sharing 10 years worth of lessons learned, I think.
Yeah.
So please join me in welcoming Chris.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to speak. It's wonderful to be here and to see this many people at a conference on crowdsourcing and working with the crowd. For me, it's been, as John says, nearly exactly 10 years since we got involved in this world, launching our first project, which was Galaxy Zoo. I was an astronomer, so I'm a distracted one, interested in giving morphological classifications to galaxies. So I know there are ecologists in the room, but it's the same thing. You want to know what shape something is. The shape of a galaxy tells you about its history. And so without really thinking about it, we built a simple web platform that presented one of a million images of galaxies, asked the simplest, useful question that we could think of. What shape is this galaxy? Is it a spiral or an elliptical or a merger or something else? And invited the public to come and help us. And when we did this, we thought we would be appealing to amateur astronomers, people who already have astronomy in their lives. And my assumption was that I'd go and give a talk to a local astronomical society, 50 people would go home, classify 50 galaxies each, and we'd repeat this every month or so. And the prediction in 2007 was that by 2012, we would have looked at all million galaxies. It was a nice side project. But on day one of Galaxy Zoo, we received 70,000 classifications an hour. It turns out it's hard to succeed slowly on the internet. And it turned out that people wanted to make a contribution. The people who'd never thought about astronomy were inspired by the idea of helping scientists to do real science. Now, I could give a very happy talk lasting a couple of hours about the scientific results from Galaxy Zoo. I've been dissuaded from doing that for this crowd. I will say that we've got to the point where people are writing papers about how successful we are. This is a measure of influence, this is a measure of citation index in the hashed lines for papers from the Zooniverse and Galaxy Zoo. And then the comparison here, the shaded paper part, is papers written mostly by other astronomers using the same data sets. And so we can show not just that we're writing peer-reviewed articles, with more than 100 papers that use our data, but that those articles are having an influence on the rest of the culture. As you'll have gathered, we've moved beyond Galaxy Zoo. One of the things that happened early was that we started hearing from other researchers with data that looked more like this, rather than galaxies. So this is data from a project called Penguin Lifelines, run by Tom Hart in Oxford. Tom used to go and count penguins in the Antarctic. Now he maintains a network of about 100 cameras on the Antarctic Peninsula, and he comes back with images like this, but there's still only a small group, and so counting penguins turns out to be something that the public are very happy to do. This is a difficult problem. Most of the images look like this. And so using the same software that supports Galaxy Zoo, we built this site, Penguin Watch, which is one of our most popular projects. The original name was Penguin Hunters, and you can sort of see that in the design. But again, it's interesting working in an interdisciplinary fashion. We were dissuaded from calling this Penguin Hunters. And so this platform that allows you to build projects has been used for everything from papyrology to penguins, from planets to cell cytology and biochemistry. And it's been an enormous success. This is the up-to-date graph of the number of Zooniverse projects over time. Not only are we 10 years old, but we launched our 100th project just a few weeks ago. And we're already up to 104? 105. I've lost count. And one of the reasons that acceleration has happened is that rather than hiring web developers to build projects for people, we built a platform. So you can now build your own Zooniverse project using an online tool, which we could demonstrate to you at lunchtime. Now, I was going to talk about the tool, but that's no fun at all. So I thought, to wake everyone up, we're going to have a world record attempt. So I'd like to introduce my colleague Grant Miller. Grant is going to try and build a working citizen science project in under 3 minutes. So hopefully we can switch laptops. And this is a live demo, so we're reliant on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, sorry.
So this will definitely work.
Yeah.
There we go. Grant, good luck. Can we give Grant a round of applause?
Not yet. This is Science Gossip. This project, this Zooniverse project, took all the resources of the construction scientific communities project, who are our sponsors here today. And I'll show you it quickly. Basically, they've got a lot of digitized 19th century science journals. They ask you if there's any illustrations in the image. And if you say yes, you can mark them, the type of illustration, with a rectangle, and that's it. Now, just to piss them off, and you'll hear Jeff talk about the project later on, I'm going to try and build that project for free in under 3 minutes. Okay, when you go to zooniverse.org, you can click build a project. Yeah, I'm going to give this a head start. I'm going to click the build, create a new project button. This is where we start, okay? Anyone can do this. But maybe take an afternoon rather than 3 minutes on stage. Okay, we're going to start the timer now. Okay, this project is going to be called Science Gossip Connecting with the Crowd. Description is going to be uncover the history of citizen
This is
science.
exactly what they meant with this, it makes the talk exciting and interactive.
This is very important. It's very important you write interesting things on your landing page, because it can actually control how many people click through and help you out. So I'm going to write blarg as the introduction here. I'm going to create this new project, okay? And it should pop up now. What we want to do quickly is just an aesthetic thing, because also it's very important that you make a project that looks good. We're going to choose a background image. We're going to go into Science Gossip demo, and we're going to take the background image from Science Gossip, and we're going to load it in there. Now we need pictures to look through. We're going to go to the subject sets. There's only 2 things you have to do. You have to upload pictures, you have to ask questions about them. We're going to call this subject set 1, and then we're going to grab some images. We're going to grab this one, that one, and that one. I've grabbed these already from Science Gossip. We're going to load them in. Now this is the bit that takes longest. We're only loading 3 subjects. There's a few 100,000 in Science Gossip, maybe even more than that. That would take a bit longer on stage. So now we have our images up there. The only other thing you have to do really is set your workflow, what you want to ask about these images. We'll go to a new workflow and we'll call that workflow 1, and then we'll add it in. So the first question, does anyone remember what it was? Yeah, are there any illustrations? Are there any illustrations? Probably spelled wrong. Help text, you can add whatever you want. It's a picture. We're going to add, our answers are going to be no.
We're working on translation as well.
We are working on translations, and skip. It's up to debate whether skip is actually good having in a project, but we don't have time to talk about that right now. So that's our first question. The next question, we're going to add a task. This time it's a drawing task. We're going to say, draw a rectangle around the picture. It's a picture. Then we're going to add, there's different types. So there were, what was it?
Maps.
There was a map. Yes, we'll add that. We'll make it our rectangle, and we'll make it green. Then there's a photograph. We'll make it a rectangle, and we'll make it cyan. Then there's a charter table. And we'll make it a rectangle, and we'll make it magenta. And finally, there's diagram. This is getting tight. Rectangle, and we'll make it. Oh no! Magenta. But all we have to do at that point, genuinely, okay, 3 minutes done, is tick one button and it's finished. Associate the subjects with those questions, and that is genuinely it. We now have, or we should have here, a working version of Science Gossip in just over 3 minutes.
It's loaded. This is where the Wi-Fi is pinning it down. Excellent.
It did work. And if anyone wants to build a project in maybe slightly over 3 minutes, we can do that at lunchtime.
Excellent. So that's why we have lots of projects, because anyone can build Zooniverse projects for free and take advantage of the things that we've learned in running more than 100 projects. So what I want to do for the rest of the talk, rather than classify things on grand science gossip, is just reflect on what works and what doesn't. And the first thing that I want to stress is that taking part in these projects, even though the tasks are very simple, and these are straightforward things we're asking people to do, count penguins, label a galaxy, it has an effect on the people. There's some excellent work by Karen Masters at Portsmouth, which showed images like this within the projects and used them to assess scientific learning. And what Karen found was that as people participate in Zooniverse projects, they become more of an expert in their domain. So if you're doing a galaxy project, you learn more about galaxies, but they also gain in general science knowledge. And so what these projects are doing are inspiring people to go out and learn. And actually they're learning things that the projects don't try and teach them. So it's not that they're reading everything on the site and becoming engaged with Galaxy Zoo or whichever project. It's that the process of being an active participant in science acts as an engine of motivation. People go out and they want to come to places like this museum and they learn because of this interaction. We've also shown with work from a bunch of economists who were led by Joe Cox in Portsmouth, who were confused by the idea that anyone would do this work for free, that the odds of somebody going on to do lots on the platform, the odds of somebody going on to be more than just a casual clicker, doesn't depend on the level of education they come in with. And so we were worried for a while that the advanced users, the people who were doing a lot on the platform, were the people who already had high levels of science capital, who came in already feeling comfortable in science. But that's not true. We're taking a wide, broad, large audience, inspiring them to learn, and that's happening regardless of their background or their prior experience of science. So this is really effective science communication. You can also see that we were wrong to think of these projects as classification projects. So Galaxy Zoo, Penguin Watch, Science Gossip, the examples you've seen, have at their heart simple tasks. But it turns out that when you ask a large audience of distractible people to engage with a simple task, they get distracted. And they get extracted by the unusual and the interesting. I don't have time to give lots of examples, but as one example, we have a project called Planet Hunters, where people are looking at data from NASA's Kepler Space Telescope, which monitors the brightness of about 150,000 stars. And what you're looking for is a dip in brightness that indicates the presence of a planet. And Planet Hunters volunteers have found more than 100 separate planets that were missed by algorithms. And this is the data for one star, time on the x-axis. You can see there's a dip, as noticed. There was another dip, and that's good. You want a repeated pattern because the planet should be on an orbit. The sort of rule of thumb is you see 3 dips and you can claim a discovery. So this star had 1 dip, 2 dips, and then nothing happened for about a year. And then this happened. The star lost 20% of its light for a few hours, and then nothing happened for another year, and then this happened. And stars do not do this. This is the only star in the dataset where this is happening. So we had a variety of explanations for this. The volunteers called this the WTF star, which stands for Where's the Flux? But the star became infamous because of this paper written by colleagues in the States, which is the search for extraterrestrial civilizations with large energy supplies, the signatures and information content of transiting megastructures. And so the suggestion is that what's blocking the light from this star is a giant alien space station. Turns out this gets you noticed. We got a lot of press. I'm using this example because it was the only one that included the word may. I have to give a particular shout out to the Daily Mail, who criticised us for covering up the evidence of alien civilizations, despite the fact there's a paper. And the star is continually being monitored. In fact, just a few weeks ago, it started dipping again, and we were able to point some of the largest telescopes in the world at it to find this thing. So the professional astronomers are excited about this and think it might be aliens. But let's look at why that happened. How did that research happen? Well, here's, that's actually the right curve. Here's the discussion thread. So most Zooniverse projects have the classification interface, and then they have an interface called talk. which is a custom-built platform for discussion about the thing that you've just seen. And this is a fairly typical talk thread. So you can see what's happening. This is in reverse order. So the first volunteer to spot it says, "This is bizarre. I'm not sure what's going on. It's a giant pig." And then somebody asks a question, "Is that a giant transit or is it a long period planet?" Somebody else just marks it interesting. Somebody points to a different set of stars. And then Planet Sam at the top here, that's the formal reference number of the planet. So he's gone to the NASA archive and said, okay, this is the Kepler ID, so you can look up data. Then there's a user called Nighthawk Black on the forum who went and got the data and starts to do his own analysis. He provides a picture of himself doing this analysis, as you can see. But what's interesting about this to me, I don't know if you can read this from that, but he's saying, I can't reconcile the smaller dips at 140, 292 days as secondaries to make this an eccentric eclipsing binary. Nothing to match smaller dip is found. And my point here is that he sounds like a scientist. This is a researcher engaging with a problem. And he goes on, he makes a model. So they go off, and there's a collaboration of people who start looking into this. No professional astronomers are involved, but he ends up postulating that maybe it's a planet with a disk of material. And I love the comment at the end. The true situation is nothing like this, but it seemed like a good opportunity to rampantly speculate in paint, which I think we should write that sort of thing more in our papers. So he develops this model, and here's the paper, and he's actually the second author. So what was needed for this to happen was, first of all, a classification task. Somebody had to be motivated to look through the data. So the basic task is essential. Then somebody had to notice that there was something unusual. That was that first user, who was Copernicus 123, who said, there's something interesting here. And then on top of that, we have a community of people who are more advanced and have access to data. But you need all of those pieces. We couldn't have challenged Darren and his friends to just go and find the most interesting star and research it. Nor would they be motivated to do that. These are people who have become motivated because they found something interesting, and so they find themselves learning about infrared astronomy and spectroscopy and so on. So you need the entry-level task, both to find the unusual things and to build on top of it. And so one way to think about this problem is that these projects put in tension with each other the classification task, which produces data that astronomers use. This is a census of a particular type of galaxy on the left, but also the discovery task, represented here by the Vorba, this big green glowing gas cloud that I'll tell you about some other time. And so citizen science projects of our type succeed when they do both of these things, but the two things are interrelated. And it's very easy to lose sight of that, I think. So I'm supposed to be talking about lessons from citizen science. So my lesson is plan for classification so that you can promise people that they're doing an authentic scientific task, but be prepared for discovery, for responding to things that the volunteers find. And in the other talks that on Zooniverse projects, particularly Science Gossip, you'll hear examples of that echoing through. But this tension is under threat because of the way that science is changing. It's under threat from things like this. The robots are coming. I don't know if we have computer scientists in the audience, but when I give this talk to a computer science audience, 6 people at the back are usually convinced that in half an hour they can write a machine learning solution to all of these problems, so we can stop bothering these people. And this is problematic because I don't want to stop bothering those people. It's an excellent science communication tool. And secondly, because I want to leave open the possibility that even when we have large data sets, that we can still be surprised by the unusual. And yet I've just argued that making those discoveries depends on the basic classification. So let's think about how machine learning might change the Zooniverse. Well, one thing you can do is you can clearly use it to accelerate what you do. Here are images from a project called Snapshot Serengeti. The lead on that project, Ali Swanson, is here. The task here is to label species. So you've got a giraffe on the left, a lion on the right, some sort of horse, stripy horse in the middle maybe. I'm an astronomer, I don't know. But clearly what you can do with machine learning is find other examples of the same thing. And so you might still need human labeling on some fraction of your data set, but once you realize that this is a lion on the right, then maybe you can realize that these other things are big cats as well. However, you still want to do this classification task by machine. I am going to just skip a couple of slides. And so we can think about how that would interact, how human and machine interact. You start with a new classification problem, and you need to label the training set. So you start off knowing absolutely nothing, and so you need people to sort through your data, say lion, zebra, giraffe, lion, zebra, giraffe, or whatever it is. Slowly you build up a training set. Modern machine learning relies on large training sets. So as that training set grows in size, you should expect the performance of the machine to improve. And here's an utterly non-scientific representation of this. This is my sense of what happens. Machine performance improves slowly with size of training set, but then usually there's a threshold where the machine becomes pretty good at this. And so suddenly you can classify most of your images. At that point, you're left with a small fraction of the images that are unusual or interesting or have rarer objects or which are excluded from the training set, and so you need people to come along and finish that off. So you end up with people both classifying at the beginning of a project and at the end. And one can show that you can combine human and machine to do this effectively. So here's a real example of that. This is a project called Supernova Hunters. This is looking for exploding stars. Project doesn't matter. This are the results. On the x-axis here we have the score given by a trained neural network. On the y-axis you have a score given by Zooniverse volunteers. Green are not supernovae, so should be scored low. Blue, yellow, and especially red should be in the top right. They should be scored well. And what you can see from this image instantly is that there's no threshold I can put on the machine score or on the human score that outperforms a combination of the two of them. Right? So if I want to isolate the blue and red points, I do better by drawing a diagonal line across this, by combining the different classifications from human and machine. So it's exciting to see this in real data. And really, instead of my evil robot, we have a nice friendly relationship with the robots. We get humans and machines working together. So the future of this excellent science communication tool, I think, is one in which you, in a sophisticated fashion, include machine learning alongside people. But we can already see that that's going to be problematic. Because by including the robots, by changing what you're the tasks that you're asking people to do, you change the nature of the experience that you're offering to people. By deciding to only show you certain images where I really need human classification, I change that interaction instead of just giving you a random galaxy. And we can see that happening in some of our data. This is work by Helen Spears, who's here, who's one of the Zooniverse team in Oxford. This is a measure of inequality in the Zooniverse. There's a cumulative graph of number of contributors versus classification, but there's this typical pattern in which lots of the work on most projects is done by a small number of classifiers. We see that that's true across each line is a different project. The different projects are different. On the left is a typical Zooniverse project, and happens to be Microscopy Masters, which you can go and look up later. On the right is the project I've just been talking about, Supernova Hunters. It's the most unequal of our projects. The one that's got the human and machine classifiers working alongside each other is the most uneven of our projects. So why is that? Well, what we think is happening is that it's affected by the way the team are releasing data. They only have a small amount of data because machines take care of most of it. And so instead of putting a large data set up and encouraging people to come to the site and classify, what they do instead, they have a weekly data release. I think it's 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. And so here is the traffic to the site. And you can detect Tuesdays. What's nice about this, it's very exciting, is for the first few of these spikes, we sent a newsletter that said data was available. But by somewhere around here, we didn't have to do that anymore. We had a trained crowd who were ready to come onto the site at 2:58 on a Tuesday, waiting for their chance to discover a supernova. So this sounds great. This is a hugely engaged crowd, people who have made space in their week to collaboratively contribute to this astronomy project. And yet it's the most uneven project. And so what's happened here is that the scarcity of classification opportunity has crowded out the casual citizen scientists. We now only have the most committed people taking part, because you have to be there at 2:58 on a Tuesday, because by 3:30 it's gone. For those of you who run projects or are thinking of running projects in the room, I think this is a hugely important message, that changing the design to help produce more efficient science has a strong effect on your community. You change the nature of the people who can participate, by trying to push for efficiency. And as people who are thinking about citizen science, not only as a tool for getting science done, but as a way of changing the public conversation about science, I think we need to take that very, very seriously. This comes up particularly in my world, because we often give these talks and people say, the first question is usually, well, have you tried turning it into a game? You know, why aren't you gamifying? Everything in the world is gamified. I got points for checking in at the museum on Foursquare. You know, my people who go to the gym, gyms are trying to give you points. You can gamify a to-do list if you want to do that. And we're game-playing creatures, Homo ludens, and so we're sensitive to being rewarded with little doses of points. And so it seems an obvious thing to take a simple citizen science task like Galaxy's and award points for it, to allow people to play in a game-like behaviour. But it's clear, I think, that that would have a huge effect on the nature of the community. For starters, how many people are going to stop and worry about a star behaving badly if their main motivation is to gain points? Secondly, if you're in competition, then you have to be confident. If the site is set up so that you must compete against your fellow citizen scientists, then we're only going to get those who already have the confidence to want to run that race. Whereas what we've got at the minute with projects and communities that develop organically is a open platform that's allowing people who never really thought that they were going to be interested in astronomy to join in with activity that might end with working with world experts on spectroscopy to try and discover another star. So, my lessons are as follows. One, citizen science is amazing. It's been the experience of a lifetime to spend 10 years working with a large crowd of people, some of whom are nodding enthusiastically in the room, and so that's exciting. We've also done science that we didn't think would be possible, and the opportunity to make serendipitous discovery at scale is something that I think is very familiar to lots of us in the observational sciences, but it's not part of the dialogue about big data and about large-scale scientific projects. Again, we can focus attention on individual objects that have stories to tell us because they're spotted and advocated for by volunteers. Two, the entry point is important. People are doing these projects because they want an authentic experience of science, because they want to do something real to help you. And so we have to deliver that. You can't just start by saying, here's a toy example, learn here, and then you can move on to the real stuff. You have to give an authentic experience on the way in. Three, discovery and classification are both important. The serendipitous stuff is great, and the core task is important for all the reasons I just said, but they feed off each other. And that relationship is going to change a lot once we put machines into the loop. And there's not enough thinking about how that's going to change things, because the people doing that, including ourselves, frame that as a question of scientific efficiency. We need to stop and talk to our communities and find out what we want from a science communication perspective. And finally, that focus on efficiency causes crowding out. And it's not as simple. If one of your goals for your citizen science project is to do effective communication as well as just get your science done, it's not as simple as awarding points for doing click work. One has to do much more than that. So I hope I know there's been a bit of a rambling talk. I know we've got a diverse audience. What I really wanted to emphasize was that you can build a project, and lots of us from the Zooniverse are here to help you. Thank you very much.